we always, I think, associate play with being more frivolous and fun and entertaining, and it is. But there's something so much larger and deeper going on.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Tyrrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. Welcome back, Toddler Tribe. My guest today is Jill Lerman, and she and I are essentially the same human, I think. We have so much in common, and she has so much to share with you about creative and independent play and how it helps your child develop the skills they need to be successful in your home and at school. Jill is a play and parenting coach. She's also an early childhood educator and mom to a toddler, so she fits right in here. She empowers you to connect and engage with your little ones through simple invitations to play and making parenting feel more joyful and manageable. Her podcast, The Art of Playful Parenting, is fantastic. So have a listen to her and then get to know her in her world as well. Jill, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. You and I deeply connected on so many levels as parents, as teachers, and big proponents of play. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about all things play with you.
Yes. So I will be totally honest with you. I have such an analytical brain and I'm always problem solving. And so even though I'm deeply connected to my students and my kids, sometimes I forget how simple play is the solution. Talk to us about what this looks like and why it can be really uncomfortable sometimes for parents.
Totally. So as you know, you being an educator as well, play really is the best tool that I believe we have to support our children across every area of their development, right? It always comes back to connection and it always comes back to play. So whether it is around their physical development, around their social emotional development, around their cognitive development for skills like problem solving, and building creativity, play really is the best tool that we have to help our children in all of these different areas. I think what's really interesting is that as children, there's something instinctual, right, about play and about exploration and about living in the here and now and being in the moment, right? And then as we get older, as adults, we lose that along the way. And then I think we spend so much of our adulthood trying to get it back, right? Trying to find that same sense of childhood presence and joy. I think that it can feel really overwhelming for parents to kind of tap into that part of themselves. And I also think that as adults, our skill sets are not equal, right, as our children's. And this is why things like independent play, which I'm sure we'll get into today, are so important. Because even with the best intentions, when we are involved in our child's play, we tend to change the shape of it, right? Our children see possibilities and opportunities that we don't. We also have a greater understanding for how things are supposed to work or how to, quote, fix something that isn't quite going the way they want. And so sometimes when we get involved, we end up kind of changing the shape of what they're doing and removing some of that opportunity from them.
Oh, wow. You're exactly right. And, even as a practiced consumer over here, I can feel it in me. Yes. I recognize it and I have to actually stop myself from saying, actually, that's a pencil, not a rocket ship, right? I have to stop myself from doing it.
I know.
So can you break down for us kind of these different buzzwords and terms that parents are hearing right now, right? They hear creative play. They hear independent play. In the classroom, they hear teachers talking about parallel play versus interactive play.
Yes.
My gosh, all of a sudden I made this sound very complicated. Bring it down for us, Jill.
Yeah, for sure. So I think let's start with independent play, which I just feel so strongly and so passionately about. And I often think parents will feel guilty, right? They feel like they're being neglectful in some way. And I hope if there's one thing that people get from our conversation today, it's that you should really feel like independent play is a gift. It's a gift you're giving your child. And it's also a gift that you give yourself, right? Because it gives us as parents and caretakers an opportunity to get some time back for ourselves, right? To get other things done that we might need to. It's not sustainable to be in a cycle of constantly entertaining your child all day long. So when we talk about independent play, what we're really talking about is play that is child-led, right? Our child is engaging and exploring, doing something that brings them joy, right? And is lighting them up. And they're doing this without our adult involvement and participation. Perhaps we're maybe observing them or we're nearby. I'd say often for independent play to be successful with toddlers, you need to be, and we can talk more about that. But they're really driving and shaping the activity and the exploration that's happening. And I think that this is often, a place that we get confused because we have ideas in our mind of what play is supposed to look like. And we're imagining, especially with our toddlers, they're sitting and quietly stacking blocks or, they're feeding their baby doll. Sometimes, yes, but particularly for toddlers, play is very driven by what we call schema. And this idea of exploring and problem solving through repeated exploration. So this often looks in toddlers like dumping bins, right? Just constant. If you have a toddler at home and you're like constantly dealing with dumping, so common. And this is such a classic way that toddlers play and explore, but it's messy, right? It doesn't look like maybe what we have in mind. Perhaps they're walking around talking to themselves, or that they, there's a bunch of toys out and they're walking over those toys or collecting those random items in baskets or bags with what feels like no purpose. This is often what independent play looks like in that phase of life. And it is actually still very purposeful, right? It just looks a little different than we think. So that's independent play, and we'll, I'm sure, get more into that. When we talk about parallel play versus more interactive play, what we're talking about is children that are engaging in play. So let's think about maybe in the classroom is a great example. And we're engaging in play. We're maybe even engaging with the same materials, but we're doing it more individually focused. We're maybe taking notice of the other people around us, but this is not like the collaborative play where I'm going to pretend to be this car and you're going to pretend to be that truck and we're going to, drive on the road together. That's something that we're usually not seeing until later on. And this is really another misconception, I think, about play, because often with toddlers, we have the expectation that they're going to be interacting in play in this way. And this is very rarely the case until later in the preschool years. Really, I'd say more around 4 years old is where we're really starting to see that kind of interactive play happening.
Yes. I am so grateful to you for saying that out loud, because it's a long journey for parents,
yes.
right? Birth to 3 is long enough. And now you've got a preschooler and you're all excited and you fill out the chalkboard and first day of preschool. And these are my favorite things. And you think that simply because they aged into a new classroom, a new teacher, new friends, new program, that they've also aged into these new skill levels. And maybe they have, and maybe they're ready.
That's right.
And maybe they haven't.
That's right.
And, post-pandemic, we're seeing a lot more delays.
Where's that in my mouth?
in these areas. So for parents who are are like, oh my gosh, I get it. Okay, now I'm thinking about my kid yesterday and what they were doing. They were doing independent play. Kids want to show us what they do. So how are parents supposed to respond without getting in there and changing the play when their 2.5-year-olds, look, mommy, look, daddy, look what I do, look what I do. But they were doing it independently.
Yes. Yeah. And it is such a tricky thing because there is that longing for connection and showing, right? And the pride that comes with that. What I would encourage parents to think about is to think about how we can, well, one, we just really want to create that space, right? So thinking of yourself as an active observer. I'm here, I'm present. Perhaps I'm also involved in the putting out of some kind of prompt, because often children do need some support getting their play started, right? It isn't, some children are great at that and others need something to kind of get them going, right? Which could be as simple as maybe you put out 2 things they're not used to seeing with each other. I have a membership where every month I share play prompts. And what strikes, I think, a lot of the people in it is that they expect that it has to be more complicated than that. And then you do it and it's like, wait, that was all they needed. So there's that piece of it, right? And that's one way we're involved. The other thing I would think about grownups is, how can we maybe provide scaffolding without interfering? Or how can we relate to our child? Because what you're saying, what I'm getting from that is this child is proud, right, of what they did, which is why they want to share it with us. But rather than making it about our reaction to what they did, perhaps we say something like, yeah, I noticed that you used all the square blocks on the bottom. Can you tell me more about that? Or maybe it's something like, I saw that you were working so hard. You really were working hard on that. How did that feel? Right? So we're commenting. One, we're letting them know that we see their work, that their work is valued, right? Which is, I think, really what a child is looking for in those moments without us then intervening in what they're doing. And then secondly, I think it kind of turns the table back on them to then reflect on their own accomplishment, right? So it's not about what we think about what they're doing, but more, wow, I could tell you were working so hard on that. How did that feel? Right? There's a difference in that small shift.
Yes. Yeah. And in the classroom, we talk about that as process over product.
Yes.
And, that's another phrase, parents, that if you are going to your parent teacher conferences, you might hear that. Yes. And that means exactly what Jill just said, that it's the effort they put in, not what came out. And because what often happens is we say by accident, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful tower. And they'll say, that's not a tower. And now we broke the magic spell.
That's right. That's right. And again, with the best intentions, right? Because it all comes from a place of good intention when that happens. But we don't realize, gosh, and you said it earlier, like even being practiced in this, I've done this myself. My daughter came in to the room. This was a couple of weeks ago, and she was dressed up in, a whole sit. There was a tutu involved. There was a cape involved. There was a fireman's hat. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like you're a firefighting superhero ballerina. That is so cool. How did you come up with that? And she said, that's not what I am. And immediately it was just like this, like the bubble burst, right? I thought I had an idea of what that was, what she was trying to create. She had a totally different idea in mind. She was being Taylor Swift, funny enough. But it just goes to show the difference had I said, been like, wow, what an amazing outfit you've put together. Can you tell me about what you're wearing? Right? Is so different than what I did in that moment. And it's hard, right? We don't always get it right. But to the extent that we can kind of take that pause and think about the way we're responding to those moments, I think can have a huge impact.
Absolutely. Quick question. Do you subscribe to the Core 4 Connector? That is our weekly newsletter. Drops into your inbox every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a great way to start the week. Reconnect with the parent, the educator, the nanny, the adult you want to be in your toddler's life. It's easy, quick, and free to sign up. Just use the link in the show notes and you will get all the links that are from the last week's podcasts, just in case they got by you and you say, oh, that's the one I wanted to listen to. Right. Easy, efficient. That's my goal, is to always provide value for you while keeping your life as simple as possible. Sign up for the Core 4 Connector today. All right, I want to ask you one of the hardest questions, really, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier. Parents often feel like it is their job to entertain kids at all times.
Yeah.
What is the difference between entertaining and engaging? Because we can have deeply engaging play between a parent and a child. It's not going to simulate in any way the type of play that a child would have with another child, but it is a deeply connecting type of play. What's that difference and how do we avoid falling into that trap?
Yeah, gosh, it's such a great question. I'm glad you asked it. The first thing that I think I want to say is that, and you kind of tapped into this a bit, is that there are so many ways that we can connect with our child. And that play is just one of the many ways, that we can engage and connect, right? When we play with our children in that way. So I say this because, to your point, we are not equals, right? Our skill sets are not the same. We're not going to be able to emulate that interaction. However, that doesn't mean there isn't value in play with an adult and a child. But I think we also want to keep in mind that there are many ways that we can find connection in the everyday moments of our routine, in preparing a meal and a snack together, in, during bath time, going for a walk. I mean, we could go through countless different examples, but I think we want to just keep that in mind for ourselves, because I think it takes some of the pressure off of having to constantly feel like you need to be the playmate, or you need to be orchestrating or entertaining or doing, preventing boredom in some way, right? So that's one thing that I want to mention right off the bat. But yeah, I think that parents often feel that if their child asks them to play, or, kind of is requesting their involvement, that they can't say no. And I feel that there are actually many respectful ways that you can decline playing with your child, and that it's completely acceptable with all the other responsibilities that we have as parents, that you're unable to always do that. So I think that it's not an all or nothing. To your point, I think play can be, again, a really connecting and wonderful thing that we can experience with our children. But I think if you're feeling caught in a cycle of that you can't get anything else done because the second that you stand up to go do something, your child is trying to pull you back in, or that your child is having trouble kind of self-initiating, so you're always feeling like you have to be putting things out. That's sort of the difference that I'm talking about today. And I think that, a lot of this is about finding time and building in the time for independent or more child-led play in the same way that we build in every other thing that's important to us in our child's routine. So I think it's just making sure, yes, playing with your child is wonderful, and having those engaged sessions of play is great. We just want to make sure that that isn't always what's happening, and that it's not then detracting from them being able to engage separately from us and us able to then do the other things we need to. In terms of our involvement with it, I would just encourage parents to think about really letting a lot of this be generated by your child's ideas. So again, this might mean that we're in that more active of observation where they're kind of doing the work and we're more sitting here and kind of, really engaged in what they're doing, but not necessarily participating in that way. And I think we also want to think about when we are participating, are we following our child's lead or are we kind of carrying this into a different direction? And sometimes the line is really fine. But if we're building something together and it's not quite staying up, and we know exactly what needs to happen to make that tower, or that bridge stay the way it needs to, rather than just doing that, instead maybe proposing this like this just does not seem to be staying up. We keep trying. It's just not working. What can we do? Right. So now we're coming from this collaborative place where, of course, yes, we're not equals, but we're making it a more equal playing field. I think that's the key difference in where we're making something engaging and collaborative as opposed to we're here and I'm doing the puppets and I'm kind of controlling the scenario. Does that make sense?
Oh, you're speaking my language. That collaborative interaction and that intentional language use to really draw from them ideas, which is a perfect segue to my next question for you. The act of play is really an act of learning. And you talked about this a few minutes ago, how, them doing their thing separate from us and us doing our thing separate from them. That's in those moments, because we're always learning and we're always growing, that is personal development. That is skill development. That is human development. That is self-skill time. Yes. So what are some of the self-skills that parents can feel confident in knowing their kids are going to be practicing if they do say, we play together for 20 minutes before bed every night. I don't have this time to give right now. This is your time to play. If they make the hard decision and they get the emotional pushback, what are the skills their child is going to learn by taking that independent action?
Oh, yeah. Gosh. I think for one, just the opportunity for creativity solely driven by their ideas, right? Such a powerful, powerful thing. The opportunity to problem solve and work through difficult things that come up, which let's just take a moment. In play, this might look like that tower that keeps falling, or, I just want this thing to work and it's not quite working, right? But in life, this then translates to, look, difficult things are going to happen, right? That's life. Things don't always go according to plan. We want to create resilient little beings. And in play, there are so many opportunities to build those skills, to work through things not going according to plan and pivoting, right? Yes. I mean, we don't think about it because we always, I think, associate play with being more frivolous and fun and entertaining. And it is, but there's something so much larger and deeper going on. So that's another one that immediately comes to mind. We're learning to focus and concentrate, right? So important for building those skills for then the skills that we're going to need later on to focus in school, right? In terms of muscle, development and physical development, when we're tinkering with little things and we're building those muscles in the fingers and hands that are going to then let your toddler get dressed on their own, be able to hold a crayon or a pencil properly, right? When we're experimenting with things like balance and gravity, we're building early science and math skills. There's just, we could go on and on. When it comes to dramatic play, and we're recreating experiences that maybe we're having out in the world through play, we're processing the things we're experiencing. This is how children make sense of the world around them, right? Is through their play. So we're allowing opportunities for that to process real life situations, to prepare for real life situations that maybe we haven't experienced yet. All of that is happening for your child in those couple of minutes, and they are able to create those opportunities for themselves when we just give them the space to do that.
Goosebumps, snaps, all of it. Parents, teachers out there, this is what I call a crack the hood moment, right? Jill just kind of like opened up that little brain space and showed you how much is happening, even though we have no idea how quickly those neural connections are happening inside of there. Just amazing, amazing stuff. Jill, I have so many more questions for you, and I would love to have you back on the show. Would that be something you're open to?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I know there's so much more we can learn. I know you also have a gift for the listeners, and
Yes.
we will have that link in the show notes. Tell them what that is.
Yeah, so this is my free guide to independent play at any age. So if you heard this and you want to see more child-led play happening at home, but you don't know where to start, this is a skill that regardless of your child's personality, their temperament, their age, that you can start learning and promoting at any time. So these are my tried and true tips as a parent myself, as an educator, to help you to start that journey at home.
Amazing. So everybody go grab that and then make sure that you come back for part 2 of Jill's episode. And until then, please stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.